Despite the World Health Organization calling the Zika virus a global emergency, the 2016 Olympic Games in Brazil will not be postponed. This decision comes after more than 100 medical experts wrote a letter to the organization calling for the August Games in Rio de Janeiro to be postponed amid concerns of the spread of Zika. However, the UN Health Agency rejected the idea, saying that shifting the Olympics would, quote, not significantly alter the spread of the virus. It's to be noted that the Zika outbreak began 1 year ago in Brazil. This comes as Congress goes on a 2-week break without a funding plan to fight Zika, while state lawmakers are calling for more funding here in Texas. The fight against Zika is our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you. You can weigh in on our Fox 26 Facebook page and on Twitter. Just use the hashtag Fox26forlife. Joining us live in the newsroom again is our panel, led by our senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico, attorney Nomi Hussein, and Republican strategist and public policy analyst, Jackie Bally. Hi again, guys.
Good morning.
Hi. Well, you've got athletes, journalists, all struggling with wanting to go or not wanting to go. What to do?
You know, you've seen a lot of the young female athletes from our country that I've seen interviewed struggling, really difficult decisions to make because they're at that time of their life where they're thinking about whether or not they're going to become parents, and that is all that you see about Zika. Is if you're pregnant or you're thinking about becoming pregnant, you don't want to go to a place where you might get stung by one of these mosquitoes, bitten by one of these mosquitoes, and now the World Health Organization is saying you shouldn't be in Brazil, and so it causes a big problem for these athletes, these young athletes who are, their countries are sending them over there. But when you look at this, Nomi Hussein, Brazil has spent billions of dollars in preparing for this, and now on the eve of starting it, the World Health Organization says you have to stop, you have to cancel this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're 67 days from the opening ceremony in Brazil, and you know, if we're going to move it, where are we going to move it to, and when are we going to move it to? I mean, this Zika virus has spread to over 60 countries. The CDC has come out and said that they don't think it's necessary to move the Olympics. But the bigger point here is that this is a serious global health crisis. And our Congress is controlled by Republicans. And there's a bill in Congress to fund this research for Zika virus of $1.9 billion, which is still sitting in Congress. This is something that should have been addressed immediately. This is a public health crisis, and Congress should have done something to pass this legislation. Instead, what we've done, Chris, is we've taken money from Ebola, which everybody knows about, and we've shifted over to Zika. So we haven't solved the problem about Ebola, which could spring up again, and now we've got this new global health crisis of Zika. So it comes back to leadership in Congress, where we needed to address this, and we didn't do that.
Okay, let's start with the World Health Organization. I was going to go to that after we go to Sally, so let's start with the World Health Organization, and then you can respond to the Congress.
Well, the administrator of CDC has said there's no need to move the Olympics because it's actually going to be in the winter in Brazil, which is going to be 20 to 40 times less of an occurrence of the virus because you're not going to have as many mosquitoes. So even though the administrator who's over the CDC has said, yes, we should be looking at some concerns, he did admit that there's no need to move the actual Olympics Games. There's no way they're going to move it. They have too much in the infrastructure of the Games, too much money, too much in preparation. So in addressing that specifically, that's not going to happen. And the fact that it's going to be winter in Brazil, there's not going to be so much of an outbreak as we're fearing.
It seems to me that's very easy for some fat doctor in his 60s to say to some young lady who might be thinking about having a baby, go on, honey, it's fine. Head on over there.
Sure. I mean, but we're being realistic. I mean, how many mosquitoes do you see flying around in the winter versus the summer? I mean, it's literally 20 to 40 times less. That's what the administrator for the CDC says, and that's a very accurate statement.
All right, let me go to Sally, and then I want to talk about our Congress failing to address that bill.
Right. Okay, let's head over to social media right now. Here's just some of the things that are out there on Twitter. This person says it's utter madness to carry on with the hashtag Zika Olympics, and it needs to be stopped. How many people will suffer if it's allowed to be held? This person also in agreement says, you know, the Olympics should be postponed here. This is a political economic crisis. We should not be spreading the virus. And then a lot of people are retweeting what the World Health Organization put out, and that is that people planning on going to the Olympics in Brazil should follow follow travel warnings. Make sure you read those ahead of time and you understand exactly who should be going and what are the safe practices there. But getting to back to Congress now, leaving town with no Zika resolution, Chris, I mean, we've got some lengthy negotiations ahead.
That's right, and the president's been calling for this for a very, very long time. Jackie, I want to come straight back to you on that because Mustafa, what's your name? Naomi already brought it up. You know, the president's been calling for this for months. There's been a bill pending. He said, please don't leave on your summer break without funding this, and they did. What's the issue? Why not just fund this? When we know this is a problem, fund this bill. What's the issue?
As Naomi mentioned, the transfer from the Ebola, the funding that they had set aside for Ebola, whenever our doctors and the CDC said that the Ebola crisis that we once saw is not the crisis that it once was. They transferred those funds to the Zika virus, which we're seeing an uprise in. The transfer of those funds, a lot of our leaders felt that that was enough to address the problem as they're moving forward.
But that leaves a funding gap in Ebola, which, as all of the doctors have said, that has not been solved.
Okay, but the crisis that we once saw with Ebola is not at the numbers that we once saw. Even the president admitted that. And a lot of our leaders are saying the crisis that we thought Ebola was whenever it first started, the numbers have definitely gone down.
So is that how you fund crisis? Just move money?
Well, where else are you going to get it? You have to move the money from somewhere.
Absolutely not. I completely disagree with Jackie. You don't deal with a crisis right when the crisis occurs. This is a failure of the Republican leadership. The Republicans should have funded this bill. This is not a political issue. This is a public health issue that affects everybody.
All right, we got to leave it right there. We'll be back in the next hour with two really good topics.
Okay.